Hello everyone, Cyber Eric Gaming here with another gameplay explained video. This is for the adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales. This is the latest action role-playing game from Square Enix and Claytech Works. And I'm gonna be going over all the aspects of it, but first, please like and subscribe. It is appreciated for this channel, and it helps me out. Alright, so what is Adventures of Elliot? Basically, it's think of it like a Legend of Zelda game with a little bit more RPG mechanics, but basically it's an action role-playing game where you basically go around these different ages in terms of the different ways the world changes. But it's basically an over-the-camera on top right action role-playing game with RPG elements. You're gonna have quests, you're gonna talk to NPCs. It's pretty straightforward when it comes to the action of it. And again, it's an action RPG, but it's not turn-based or anything. It's completely action-based or real-time based, if you will. There's gonna be bosses, there's gonna be different enemies, there's gonna be weapons, there's gonna be magic you can use, etc., etc. But I'm gonna go over some of the basics of the game so you can get an understanding of how the game plays on a higher level. So basically, here's basic gameplay here of me playing. I'm basically here in a forest, you're running around, you have a sword, you have different weapons as well, and I'll show this a little bit real quick later. But you can basically break barrels, you can get gold from them, you have a bomb that you can put on the ground, and you can blow up rocks. If you ever played a 2D Zelda game, you're gonna be right at home here. Obviously, you're gonna have powers like here I am zooming in. You're gonna find chests, then you're gonna find different items, either accessories for your weapons, you're gonna find additional gold, etc., etc. You're gonna be running around the map, unlocking different quests, fighting different enemies. There is no XP level per se system here. It's basically enemies will get tougher as you progress along and change to different ages, but you're basically running around fighting them, etc., etc. You get to collect the loot. And there's like a nice fairy called Faye there that's attached to me, and I'll explain to her how she works with the mechanics of it. But here I am, for example, finding an accessory, and you're gonna go over, you're gonna talk to the NPCs. For example, here I am talking to some NPCs. They're giving me a quest as part of either the main campaign or side quests, and they'll give you different loot and rewards. There is a story that kind of gets a little bit complicated. I am not gonna go over the story because this is a gameplay explained video. But as you can see, there is some magic here, etc., etc., that revolves around the entire world, etc., etc. So, okay. So one of the things about the open world is you're gonna have obviously big cities. The cities change based on the age that you are in, so you can change between these, and I'll show that in a second here. But you're basically running around this map, and you're gonna be running inside buildings. You can go inside buildings, at least some of them. And you're gonna talk to NPCs, and then the animations are great here. As you can see, I'm just going up the stairs, and the animation just switches over to different looks of it, and it looks great the entire time. You're gonna have this like little checkpoints around the map, and these are basically your way for you to save your game. They don't give you health, by the way. They don't automatically heal you, but they will let you save. They're all over the place, and you can see the map here unlocked. There's those little blue towers that you see there, and I can basically switch between the ages here. Basically, those blue towers are your checkpoints that you can save, and you can also use them for fast travel. You can basically very quickly unlock a lot of fast travel points. One of the other things that you will see is basically, as I mentioned, you can change between the ages, and that's basically where the map changes. The map stays the same, but obviously the different towns change because it's 20 years later or 40 years later, all right, or however long it's been. So you're gonna basically find different terrains which change between the aspects of the game, but basically that's one of the mechanics, and you're gonna have to go back and forth between different ages to progress through the game. But as you can see, basic things. One of the things I wanted to show was the fairy. You actually control her with the right stick if you're playing like an Xbox or PlayStation controller. So you actually control her separately. So for example, I am moving her forward here with the right stick. I'm activating a skill that basically sucks enemies, and I'm basically just moving the fairy against the enemy, pulling them down, and that's basically a mechanic that you can use. And you can use her for a bunch of different things. She's basically your power unlock character. So she gets different abilities, and you basically get to unlock them. For example, I showed the vacuum there. That's the vacuum power. You get that a little bit later in the game, but I want to kind of show it. So it's kind of like things to show. And basically, she just basically creates a suction, and she basically can pull things. So it's useful for both combat, and there's other abilities as well. For example, this is I think one of the last abilities you find, which is basically the clone, where you basically create a clone of yourself by basically the fairy. So basically that's one way for you can to do different mechanics. So there's skills, for example, there's this like nice speed, zooming ability, etc., etc. And there's other abilities. Again, this is a Metroidvania, so think about it like an action role-playing game, but think of it like a Metroidvania. So for example, I was swimming, and the fairy just basically tells me, hey, maybe if you could dive, you could go forward. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna unlock that skill later. And it's clear. The game kind of gives you a very clear objective. I was like, there's ways to unlock. So there's also dungeons, as like a Zelda game. There's obviously gonna be a checkpoint at the beginning of your dungeon. And as you walk through the dungeon, you're gonna unlock different, chests, locked rooms where enemies show up. Clear all the enemies to unlock the room, etc., etc. Very basic stuff, but very fun and engaging. And again, there's caves, there's dungeons, etc., etc. Another one of the powers, for example, the fairy can do is she can light on fire, so she can help you light lamps, like you saw me do there. And she can do other things, like for example, the vacuum power that I showed. For example, if you control her, and again, I'm controlling her separately here. I basically can use the vacuum there, and I can move that ball around until I unlock it. That's it. And you're gonna find all these little puzzles, etc., etc. I'm not gonna spoil you on any other puzzles here, but not self. There are a lot of puzzles like Zelda. There are also weapons. You can unlock different weapons, and they also have different stars. So basically, the higher the stars, the better the weapon, right? And you're basically gonna have 7 main weapons. And I'm not gonna showcase the bow here, but for example, here's the bow and arrow, or I guess just the arrows, where you basically great for shooting long range, but usually you have limited ammo. And you basically have a sword, etc., etc., and you have other things like you saw me unlock that hammer. If I equip the hammer, that basically it hits harder, but it's also slower. So you basically have to figure out what enemies you do. Obviously, hammers also have like an AoE, so if I charge it, you can charge your attacks. I can basically hit the enemy from above right now. So basically, those are the little things that you're gonna figure it out. For example, here I am hitting the guy and knocking him out in one shot. And there's other weapons like the scythe or the chain, where it's a little bit longer range, but if I leave the button pressed, I can basically spin that chain around, and it basically helps for enemies that like take small hits. And so you can actually get hit harder. For example, here's the spear going up and down, where it's more precision attacking forward. And for example, another thing I wanted to show here, I am actually parrying these enemies here. So as they are attacking, I'm actually parrying them. And that's a mechanic you will unlock a little bit later into the game, a few hours in, but where you get a shield that can parry enemies. So for example, when that enemy goes red, I basically press the left button, or right trigger at the top, and you can parry. And you can, it's not just attacks, you can also parry like magic, etc., etc. And obviously it's mechanics. Not everything is parryable, but some things are. And one of the main things about this game is also boss battles. There's a lot of boss battles. They are fun. For example, here I am fighting these 3 guys at the same time, which again can get annoying, but it's one of those things that you learn how to use your different. What's the best weapon for a particular enemy? For example, I found the spear pretty useful for this guy when he was doing the slams. You can jump. You can jump over those rings, but at this point, I'm just rushing him to eliminate him. And once you eliminate a boss, of course, you get lots of loot or money or crystals. One of the things I wanted to show as well was you get gold in this game, but you also get something called Magicite. So Magicite, the way you use this is basically you get to unlock different attachments for your weapons, and that lets you create builds. That's why this becomes more of an RPG, obviously the action part of it that you've seen, but also the RPG side where you get to unlock these different attachments or crystals that you can attach to your weapons. You can also attach more as you go through. And for example, here I have the conservation skill, which basically creates 50% chance of conserving arrows, which is actually very, very useful for the bow and arrow if you want to use it. Right, so 50% of your shots don't cost anything. That's great. And you're gonna find different characters, different side characters that'll give you a lot of quests. And those quests can be useful for giving you additional things in the map. And the game will even show you where the objectives are on the map, so you're not that lost. So that's mostly it in terms of like the basic combat of it. For example, here I am with a boss, and I'm gonna show you basically the boss fight, at least the end of it, where you see all these mechanics, you see all these lightning explosions. I hit him with a boomerang from afar, and then when I realized, okay, if I can get close, I'll hit him with the sword. But for the most part, here I am just dodging like crazy, like a maniac. And even if he's gonna hit me and he's about to kill me, there's obviously potions and other things that you can do. It is an action RPG, so basically here I take out a potion. I heal myself, and then I'm able to defeat this boss. Right, so little things like that you can do, and there's all kinds of potions. There's also a lot of puzzles, as I mentioned. There's little things here. For example, here's this little chain of exploding barrels that I have to press the strings so that I can unlock that, etc., etc. But you're gonna find all sorts of puzzles, challenges, and little things like that here. But it's a very charming, extremely charming game. By the way, I love this game. It is one of my favorite games of 2026, if not for in a long time. If you are a fan of any action role-playing games like this, Zelda, etc., you're gonna be right at home. I highly recommend this title. But with that, that's the Gaming Explained video. I would like to thank everybody for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It is appreciated. And as always, this is Eric Gaming, and have a good one, everyone.